Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for Agentic AI, what it demands from enterprise data. My name is Antonio Cotroneo, Director of Product Marketing here at Precisely, and I'm sure you all are experiencing something very similar to me, where it feels like AI is moving very quickly right now. And at this point, most organizations, they've either experimented with things like co-pilots or chat interfaces and model-driven insights, but now we're really entering sort of a new phase, one where AI doesn't just assist us in the work that we're doing, but it's beginning to act on our behalf. Agentic AI can interpret signals from throughout the business. It can make decisions and autonomously execute all sorts of different workflows across the various systems that we're all working with. And that change really makes a major difference in the equation that we all are working with. So when AI starts acting, I mean, this could be anything. It could be from approving transactions or triggering customer outreach or escalating service issues. Sort of the bar for data management and data integrity rises dramatically. And data can't just be available to all of the various users that we may have. It must be trusted and governed and contextual and really ready for real-time decisioning. So earlier this year, Precisely and Drexel University's LeBeau College of Business, we published some research, and that it really showed this disconnect that's persistent throughout a lot of businesses, and that's the fact that leaders within the business feel confident in their AI readiness, yet the data integrity behind it remains a major barrier to real business impact, and that gap is becoming even more dangerous in an agent-driven world. So today we're going to be exploring kind of what changes when AI moves from more of that pilot to production and from assistance to autonomy. But before we jump into that conversation, I would like to introduce our panelists for today's discussion. We have Tamara Astakova, Senior Partner Solutions Architect, Big Data and Analytics, Strategic Technology Partnerships at Amazon Web Services. Dhruv Baronia, SVP, Head of Data and Analytics at Northern Trust, and Aniket Mane, VP Data Platform and Enterprise Apps Engineering. Thank you all for joining me today. If you have any questions in the audience, please use the Q&A within the platform to ask those questions, and we'll cover those at the end. And then feel free to use the chat to kind of continue the conversation throughout today's discussion. And with that, let's go ahead and jump right in. So, like I was mentioning, we spent a lot of the last few years sort of talking about generative AI and AI assistants and the like, and what fundamentally changes from a data perspective when AI starts acting autonomously instead of just sort of advising and assisting us. So with this, I'm actually going to kick it over to Dhruv to sort of start the conversation today. What say you, Dhruv?
Yeah, I would say few things changes as we move to autonomous things. The agents are by definition will take action. Things that change is accountability, permissions. We need a stronger monitoring, and eventually you need human escalation for high risk decisions. So in terms of accountability, when an agent takes a decision, we need to know what data is used, what decisions were made, why that decisions were made, and does the agent should have the permission to access those resources and make those decisions. There should be clear boundaries, and at the same time, those role-based actions and decisions have to be taken care of as well. Monitoring has to be stronger over time as well, and then human escalation and when human escalation should happen, and whether that happens because of high-risk decisions or there were some data quality issues, there is a drift in the data as well as, and there are some actions that agent is taking that is beyond the normal pattern.
Tamara, would you like to add to that?
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Antonia. And actually, going from smart assistant to just gives recommendations to an agent that actually acts on your behalf changes everything about data. I see here three critical shifts stand out. The first one is data integrity that you already mentioned. When I adjust advices, bad recommendations waste someone's time. But when agents complete the full insight to action loop without human validation, bad data drives bad actions. Accuracy, consistency, and governance are very critical because agents are making real decisions on the data. And next one is shift from stateless to stateful. Traditional AI operates in simple ask and answer patterns. Autonomous agents maintain persistent memory across sessions and building knowledge that informs future decisions. This creates new risks where bad actors inject false information that corrupts decisions across multiple interactions. And the last shift, I see real-time integration at scale. Agents not just analyze data, they connect directly to databases, APIs, services to execute tasks. Analytics flows directly to agents that make decisions and take action autonomously. So your data foundation needs to evolve from supporting human decisions to autonomous systems that operate at scale with comprehensive data integrity. So these three fundamental changes I see when we say to move from AI systems to autonomous agents.
No, thank you. Aniket, you want to round out the panel
Yeah,
on this question?
yeah, thanks. So in my experience for the autonomous agents, before autonomous agent there was automation era, right? We
Hmm.
still call it like you build end-to-end automation system. So as a data coming from a data platform or data engineering background, you have scripts which will run from step one to step two, step three, step four. You have
Right.
monitoring, you have everything, and automation takes place. And that is what, if there was no AI buzzword, we would have called it autonomous in the without the AI era. But right now, what is happening is like because of AI, autonomous agents buzzword is increasing. The reason why is just the difference of agents. So previously there were systems that were built and humans were quietly absorbing the inconsistency within the step one to step 10. So we were always in the loop in terms of like, okay, oh, if this breaks, we can trigger it, we can trigger a rollback, or we can go back to step one and run it again from step three. And slowly, there were a lot of systems in the data platform, like, which were able to do all those policies and everything. But now with autonomous agents, the fundamental thing is like, how do we remove the human buffer? So that is the biggest question. And to remove the human buffer, what kind of data is needed at every point of a particular workflow which you're trying to automate with autonomous agents, right? And that is the most critical part because the in and outs should be known and should be monitored and ensure that the next step they took is with proper reasoning and proper tracing. This way, like when an autonomous agent performs an entire workflow, you are confident about that workflow did the job or not. So in our case, like for autonomous agents in this era, is still a little bit behind because we have still humans having the tribal knowledge in their head for all the data workflows in their company. So we're trying to figure out in our company how to actually get the tribal knowledge out of the engineers' heads so that they can feed it into a more instruction-based thing for autonomous agents.
So if I'm hearing you
Yeah,
correct, it's like we sort of understand where we need to go. We
yeah,
know that we need to continue to improve the quality of the information,
yeah.
unlock institutional knowledge. I think that ties back to some of the research that I mentioned at the top.
Mhm.
It's a nice segue into the next questions. So in that research, there was this gap between, you know, the leaders feeling confident in their overall AI preparedness, but then also with other questions, we were able to show that the data integrity still continues to lag. So why does that disconnect continue to persist, and sort of what does that gap look like in real organizations? And maybe to expound on that a little bit more, this is that gap between senior leadership in the organization feeling like they're ready, they have these perhaps top down demands from boards and
Yeah.
investors, I'd say, hey, we need to kind of continue to implement these technologies, find new operational efficiency, but then perhaps those closest to the data understanding that perhaps it's not quite ready for that. So I guess Tamara, why do you see that disconnect persist, and sort of what does that look like in real organizations that are operating today?
Yes, good, good. The agentic AI data integrity gap in real organization is critical disconnect between AI ambitions and execution capabilities. According to AWS research with Harvard Business Review, while 74% of leaders agree that AI use is very important, only 26% effectively leverage AI for positive outcomes. Most organizations are not ready in three key areas, such as data architecture, governance, and workforce readiness.
Hmm.
Only 13% say that their data architecture is ready for agentic AI. Just 11 had the right governance in place. And only 5 feel their workforce is prepared. On top of that, about half of organizations don't trust AI enough to let it make operational decisions on its own, especially for critical tasks. And here I see how precisely an AWS help. Precisely is AWS Advanced Strategic Partner with two AWS competencies, data analytics competency and migration modernization. So precisely helps address these data integrity challenges for organizations. Built on top of AWS infrastructure and services, precisely delivers comprehensive data accuracy, consistency, and governance solutions that help organizations transform raw enterprise data into trusted knowledge. So this enables organizations to clean up data, build reliable pipelines for AI, and maintain the trusted data foundation that agentic AI really needs to actually work.
Mm.
I think that piece around workforce readiness kind of strikes home. I see that all the time, and folks that we work with, like there's so much excitement about this technology, but having the folks in place to be able to implement it properly and use it so that it can and so that it's not actually a burden is it's I need to continue to keep thinking about that. Aniket, is there anything that you want to add to Tamara's answer there?
Yeah, I kind of agree that the gap is real, but the root cause is actually the practice which we have had in the data industry for a while. When I remember when I joined the company in Silicon Valley, it was all about data democratization.
Hmm.
Okay, you need to work in pods. You have an analyst in your pod. They own their own data, own metrics. Then companies moved from decentralized to centralized, and again came back to
Hmm.
decentralized because of the speed. And so over
Right.
the time, if you look at practices that are followed in companies, that has introduced fragmentation. And that fragmentation has led to a data integrity gap across different teams, like whether it's marketing team, product team data, then email marketing data. And everyone has their own way to show the data. So we all know that we want to show our pod or our department as good, so the metrics will be a little bit different. They'll show that, okay, I should get the attribution for this spend dollars. Oh, email should get the more attribution compared to the paid marketing, right? So that's where like the integrity comes in, when people not start thinking about like, okay, this is silos. They have to come together as one organization and actually own that entire decision logic across systems, right? So it's not about always data quality, data integrity. It's just the humans should be able to actually come and take ownership about the decision logic. So when you start thinking about agentic AI, data integrity, we should figure out what are the decision systems across your workflow, and who should own the decision logic, and they should all come together. So that's why the leaders feel confident that pipelines are running, but when decision needs to be consistent across domains, the gaps start to show, and everyone points to the first mistake. Oh, there's a data gap, right? They don't say that there is a human gap. So that's my take on the agentic AI data integrity gap. It's technical, but also it's a little bit psychologically also.
Well, that's some of the workforce readiness too, and the governance kind of coming into play together,
Yeah,
where you have like specific ownership and understanding that decision tree and where
yeah.
folks are kind of playing in the process. Drav, anything to add on top of that?
Yeah, I would say that yes, the gap is real, but the gap comes in is like the confidence at the executive level comes from the successful completion of the pilots. But pilots have limited scope. They are small. People are reviewing it while the pilot is running, and then the data issues, if they arise, are typically get curated manually on the spot to make the pilot successful. But really, the issues start arising when you move from pilot to actually production, and that's where the scope gets much bigger, and then it becomes a lot more autonomous, and then becomes beyond where people can observe and try to fix it. One way to get over is actually then go into production in a very phased manner. But otherwise, like, this gap is moving from pilot to production is, and people at a senior level thinks that uh, pilot is successful, that means we are ready. But is the pilot uh, representative of the production level readiness or not? uh, that's how I see it, the gap arising.
I think that piece is something that we see all the time. Like when there's you're building this thing in a vacuum. It's a lot easier to get it kind of tuned properly and working towards this specific kind of end state. But once it's sort of released into the wild and it's being used at a much larger scale, there's a lot of other factors that end up playing into its overall success. I think one of those things is that sort of kind of either AI ready or agentic ready sort of data concept that we quickly discussed before. I guess let's talk about that a little bit more. So, I mean, if we're raising the bar for agentic AI, what does agentic ready data actually look like in practice, and how do you know, like if you're a data leader within an organization, how do you actually know that you have it, and how do you know that you're ready? Perhaps there isn't perfect, but there is a state of the data that would let you know that you are ready to move forward. Aniket, I'd like to start with you on this one.
Yeah, that's the question I always kind of, at my job, I'm thinking like, okay, how should be the data warehouse or a data lake should be ready for the AI era? And what does that agentic ready data look like? And um, probably 1 year ago, we had, like, I'll give you my company example. We had raw data, then
Mhm.
we have operational data stores, then we created like something called fact stores, which are like kind of condense information into facts and dimensions so that metrics could be analyzed in a more easy way, and also trying to get to key entities in the business. Like for example, if you are Amazon, you would have orders, you will have customers, you have items. So if you can build metrics around those key entities, you can cover the entire business line. So that worked well for analysts. Everyone was like, oh, great, you have a flat table and everything, right? And then I'm like, okay, now how should I make sure that is that the agentic AI ready? Like the fact tables of the data warehouse, is that agentic ready? Maybe. But then there's a concept of semantic layer that came in, and I'm like, okay, semantic layers is basically the fact tables which I built. So I should just have to expose the fact table or semantic layer to the AI. And then we tried doing that, and uh, I still remember like the early hallucination with the semantic layers also. Oh, and then there are companies that came up. Okay, we will reduce hallucination for your semantic layers, which you have built in Looker or any other tool. So at that point, like I was convinced that semantic layer is the way to go. Let's invest in that. And then slowly over last 12 months, now like I did a small experiment in my company. I exposed entire data warehouse to the agents, and the insights they were able to unlock was actually unreal. Like we couldn't even interpret like how did these guys go into, the agents went into everything and like figured out, and like obviously we had to verify it, but 80/20 rule, it worked 80% of the time, and that's where I'm like, okay, should I make the data ready, agentic ready, or should I just expose everything? So that's the question I'm still battling in my head. Like, are the models getting so better at what they do? We don't even have to. It's like a worm, like a Trojan horse. You just send it, and then it will do everything and give you the results. So that's where I am at, and I feel like I'm still trying to make a decision on that. Should I build semantic layers or should I just expose a catalog which has a little bit of data dictionary and let the agent run wild? And that becomes your agentic ready data, or maybe I tell agents to just create the agentic ready data.
Tamara, what say you?
I agree. When we talk about raising the bar for agentic AI, we really mean is making your data agentic ready. Agents don't have years of domain expertise like humans do.
Mm-hmm.
And they need data that's been enriched with semantic meaning, relationships, and usage patterns that they can and actually understand and make some action on it. In fact, yes, I think the three building blocks make this work. Semantic layer, yeah, it's absolutely right. This is basically attaching context to your data, like technical metadata, business metadata, operational metadata, like lineage, data quality scores. Without these, agents are just guessing. And next one, I think it's tool provisioning. So agents need the right tools to for each data type. For example, relational data needs SQL tools to understand joins, foreign keys. Documents need semantic search and text extraction. Vector data needs specialized databases that can find similar items by meaning. You cannot just load an agent a pile of data and expect that it will be figured out. And also one of block, I think it's very important and how mature your data. This means that start with your best data first. So I mean, focus on data that's already cataloged, has clear lineage, and meets quality standards, and also actively maintain it. So if you start with your fully trusted data, so it will be, I think it's the most important. And for your part of question, right? So like how we can know that we are there? So, right. So it's, I think that the most important, for example, if you check that your metadata already complete across your critical data sets, data discovery drops from hours to minutes. And permissions just work automatically. So your no manual access request. Lineage tracking covers all your production pipelines. And cross-domain queries run without copying data. For example, you can use federated queries. And business users can find and understand data easy, like without IT help. So basically, when your agents stop asking for broad access to everything and instead make smart, targeted requests based on clear understanding what data means and how data should be used. So if you have all these in place, then you are exactly where you need to be.
Drav, what is kind of AI ready or agentic ready data look like at Northern Trust?
I would say that there has to be a distinction made what is an agentic ready data and how it is different from the reporting ready data. So a lot of the organizations, when they say the best quality data that they have, it is a reporting ready data. But reporting ready data doesn't always means that it is agentic AI ready data. If you think of it this way, is if you have a reporting ready data, somebody sees the report and analyze it and then take actions on it, then that human in the loop who is analyzing it is the one that is holding you back from making it an agentic ready data. So a good example of this is in wealth management, you are say meeting the client on a regular basis. So you have an agent that schedules a meeting with the client in advance, but then you don't always just go ahead and set the meeting in advance. If there is some unusual circumstances happened with the client, you need to take that in context and then think about setting it up. So if there is a human or a relationship manager, he will look up all of those things and then decide whether a regular meeting with the client is okay, or I should wait for some time and then set up the meeting with him. So, and that's where actually what we are trying to do is think about how we can train it using the past decisions, or have it something of a co-pilot where somebody reviewed it and then made the decision, and that we catalog it so that we can feed it to train it specifically for a use case basis. And specifically, the example that I give is purely the one that sets up meetings with the clients and other related parties.
So each of you, in different ways, has talked about the people, the process, connecting the semantics, or working within a catalog of some kind, and that always drives me back towards another thing that was one of those factors that was discussed earlier, was around governance. So, we talk about AI governance a lot, but how does governance need to evolve when AI is making or executing decisions in real time? And I'm gonna come back to you, Drav, on this one.
Yeah, I think the governance historically has been around, like model governance. You had SR 11.7, but if you look at in the era of AI, you have a foundational model. Nobody is building it. Nobody is training it. It is kind of like so. What you really is talking about is action level governance. Is when the agents took the action, does he use the right data? Does he take the right decision? Then whether he is allowed to take the decision or not, that's another piece of it is. And then because a lot of this time the action is taken, there is like they have sent some basic information that I was referring to, like setting up a meeting and those things. Those are low risk decision, but then if they made some decision that are high risk ones, then uh, it's a big problem. So categorizing the governance along those lines is how we have to evolve, not just talking about, okay, you built a regression model, uh, is there is a data drift, uh, or we need to just retrain the model and then go with basic governance. So that's where I would say that at a high level, you need to go from model governance to actually action, and then where you want to get human involved, and what is the escalation path in case there is some unusual decisions have to be made. Those things have to be put out and made it context ready and governed.
It's I had not really thought about it as like action-based governance before. Tamara, what does that look for you? Look like for you and your partners at AWS?
Yeah, so when AI is making decisions in real time, governance has to shift from reactive to proactive. I mean, like four things need to change. The first one is dynamic controls over static ones. Traditional governance built on human-controlled and predictable workflows. Autonomous agents need runtime guardrails, such as real-time monitoring, automatic safeguards that can stop agents when anomalies are detected, and immutable audit trails for every decision and action. And second one, I think it's continuous real-time monitoring. So specifically for Agentic AI, you need to watch for goal drift, emergent behaviors, unauthorized actions, not just performance metrics, right? And also you need built-in intervention mechanisms such as real-time override capabilities, emergency shutdown procedures, and automated suspension when agents, for example, violates policies or behave some like unexpectedly. And one more is very important, I think, it's accountability framework. When autonomous systems make decisions, you need clear responsibility chains. So I mean, like logging, reasoning chains, decision context, and action justification. So not outcomes. Outcomes important, but all these mechanisms also necessary. So this is how governance need to evolve, I think, when AI is making decisions in real time. So specifically for agentic systems.
Aniket, what does that look like for you and your team?
Yeah, so for me, I try to categorize governance into like governance at the data layer.
Hmm.
Or what does it look like? Because at that data layer, it will be more static, policy based, wherein it operates, the governance at the data layer operates before the decisions are made. But there has to be on if you look at a base governance layer, but then when you have a workflow or when you have a system which is operating in autonomous, like whether it's AI is there or not, are you using LLM or not, doesn't matter. But then there has to be a self contained governance within that workflow, which is what Tamara was talking about. Like, okay, do you have the confidence threshold of the decision? Do you have circuit breakers? Do you have the cross system validation? So a floater governance model, like, a governance model floating based on different use cases you're trying to do is what is needed in the autonomous world. You cannot have a fixed traditional governance that will work for every use case you're trying to do. Like, for example, you have agents that they want to do a marketing based optimization. You have agents that you wanted to book journal entries. You have agents that you want to optimize pricing. Everyone should have their own self governance model based on the use case they are operating on, and what are the intricate details between if I change in pricing, what can it impact, and how do I ensure that the guardrails are in real time, because the decisions are happening in real time and the actions are getting executed. So the governance has to also move at the same pace, on top of a unified governance model at the system level or at the data warehouse or data lake level. So that's my thought around like governance. As more I think about it, because it cannot be just one centralized governance model for every use case AI agents or are doing in an autonomous world.
We've seen, governance be more synonymous with, those production level environments, kind of enterprise
Yeah.
wide. It does take a lot to get to that place of being in more, production ready state. So for organizations that have had success with perhaps like maybe some of those pilots that they've worked on, just what's the practical roadmap for them to scale agentic AI responsibly without automating some of the uncertainty or some of the errors or aspects of the data that may not be ready. And I'm going to come back to you on this one tomorrow.
I think that you can start with path to production framework. AWS provides a comprehensive 8-pillar framework specifically designed to move agentic AI from proof of concept to production. I will list all these pillars. Number one is business case. So you define measurable autonomy KPIs like task completion rates, for example, human intervention frequency. And number two is data strategy. Audit data accessibility, implement real-time pipelines, establish quality standards that agents need for decisions. Number three is security and governance that we already mentioned. Define clear autonomy boundaries, what agents can do independently versus human approval. Number four is technology selection. Choose existing frameworks, for example, LangGraph, CrewEye, Agent Core, or any other technology that can help you support enterprise orchestration and multi-agent coordination. Then number five is responsible AI. Establish accountability chains for autonomous decisions with logging. And number six is development cycle. Create agentic specific CI/CD pipelines with rollback capabilities. Number seven is operational excellence. Deploy comprehensive observability with real-time monitoring for agent performance and drift detection. And the last one, upskilling. So train your team on human agent collaboration. So following this framework helps organizations scale from pilot to production while keeping systems secure, governed, and also reliable. And then this is my opinion on this.
So with that framework in mind, Drav, is that something that you all think about too, and sort of that framework mentality, or are there other ways that you all are thinking about it? Bringing things from more that pilot stage to more production enterprise ready.
Yeah, when I like Tamara did provide a good framework. What I'll add here is that we also would like to think from going from pilot to production in a staged fashion. Now, this staged fashion is going slowly in two dimensions. One is the scope, limiting to number of people uh, in the organization that can the AI agents handles the production piece, and at the same time also the risk dimension, where initially starting it as maybe running as a co-pilot kind of thing, is where it is recommending that this action should take, and then somebody is reviewing it from that stage, going to taking more low risk decisions that can be easily reversed, and progressively going it. So while you are one dimension is you are over time increasing the scope of the agents, and at the same time type of actions that they can take as well. So going in slowly towards the uh, full scale production.
Aniket, for you all, like what does that mean, and what type of sort of framework or process do you all take from being able to scale from that sort of experimentation stage to bringing things into production?
Yeah, I mean, in the early stages, I still remember a lot of our pilots actually failed. Like succeeded in the pilot, but we couldn't go to production. I still remember there was a project knowledge graph, trying to come up with semantics relationship, join this data, and come up with a knowledge graph in a graph database, and then let the agent traverse through the graph because they will learn to know how to traverse through the graph. And that was a big buzzword back then, like probably 1.5 years ago. So those pilots, like, it showed, for one or two uh, spider based, oh, for let's say tomorrow, this is what she likes, or this is the recommended items for her and all that. And then when it was going to scale, it just didn't scale because the amount of data and amount of things it needed was really huge. So in one of the pilots, which was our chatbot, back in, I think everyone remembers, when AI came in, everyone was like, okay, let's build a chatbot, right? Uh, so that's what happened. Everyone built a chatbot in like 2 days in hackathons in our company. And like, yes, we did a chatbot using, what is that? N8N and this and that tools, and everyone was like, great. And then there was a team that was building chatbot more methodically in the hackathon. They couldn't complete and didn't get a prize. But that was a team actually that made the chatbot go to production in our company. I'm like, wow. So the mindset was like, okay, quick to market, but then the market was just a presentation in the hackathon demo. But then this team actually took a little bit of a long route in terms of ensuring that, okay, if the pilot is successful, now we want to take it to scale. And I still remember, like, when we did the first version of the chatbot, it sucked. It didn't perform as well. And I'm like, what's going on? Should we even build a chatbot? And then it took us few months, few iteration, things were getting better. And like, the patience is what is important when you go from pilots to responsible scale. And the patience, you need to work with the upper management saying that, okay, we will succeed, let's make sure like we get at it. And a lot of those learnings, from pilots to responsible scale came from actually being transparent about your failures, right? So I felt like as a leader, I had to be transparent and honest, keep my job at stake that, okay, yes, we are failing, but we know we will succeed. Be patient. And finally, like, after probably 2 quarters, we were able to put the chatbot into production. and we were able to build beat the chatbot, which was actually a buy solution. And then right now that chatbot of our customer service is actually doing
Yeah.
good. So that's my experience, like an honest experience, which I could share in this webinar.
No, that's really good. I think the advice of being patient and taking a methodical approach, that's very like kind of tried and true principles like that have been in software and data for
Yeah,
years. I think what's difficult too now is because we're able to do things so quickly, it's so hard
yeah,
to be patient, when you can spin up, these kind of POCs and
yeah,
in a matter of hours or days that can do some pretty incredible things. It's very difficult to be able to sell that upstream that,
yeah,
oh, take a very methodical approach. And it's like, well, why? We were able to get so far so fast. Why
yeah.
not have to be patient? But I think that's a really good advice to the audience around still kind of keeping to some of the methodologies and kind of those tried and true methodologies that have gotten us to this point. So that's really good. I guess in the spirit of that, as we look at the rest of 2026, I mean, if you could give, this audience one piece of kind of practical advice to kind of move their agentic AI initiatives or any AI initiatives forward, kind of what would that be? And we'll come back to you real quick, Aniket. But any practical advice that you'd offer the audience as we kind of move through the rest of this year?
Yeah, I would say don't. So based on my experience working with different business team at Threada, whether it's product marketing or accounting, I take a little bit of nuance approach. So I would say don't try to use AI everywhere. So your advantage as a leader or a person, engineer working on the team is knowing exactly where your foundations or data is strong to support autonomous decisions and knowing where it isn't. So don't try to go into a field, a green field, wherein things are a little bit fragile and then you're trying to get AI there. But go with like tried and tested fields, which, okay, yeah, I know there's a confidence score. Like I know exactly how AI will fit there. Because in the AI or agentic world, the cost of being wrong actually compounds very quickly. So that's the issue which a lot of pilots, if you look at in the past, like a lot of pilots fail because we were trying something that we shouldn't have been trying at the first time, like for in the first, and then it just compounded very quickly and things went haywire. So I would say like be thoughtful about where to use, and that is the advantage of we humans, where we apply AI in our day to day or in our work, and how do we ensure that we get the success and have that confidence score a little bit beforehand.
Dhruv, what sort of practical advice would you share with the audience?
Yeah, I kind of like would say similar thing is like don't think like where can I use AI agent, like okay every then you will like go into directions where you might not be, but think about what are the decisions that you would be comfortable delegating to someone. And if you are in a leader in an organization, think of what day-to-day decisions that you feel comfortable delegating to others. Those are the ones where you definitely have a lot more data quality and all the issue things that we talked about, and those are becomes first should be the first priority of making AI agent usable. But again, the other thing that you need to think about is, as they say, like if you start putting in these agents all the time, is old approach was in a model garbage in garbage out. In this AI agent work, it just accelerated
Yes.
garbage in, accelerated garbage out. So that's where like the risk is also compounds very quickly. So think again where you are comfortable in delegating decisions, and that's where you might want to use autonomy more.
Tamara, we'll close with you.
Yeah, my practical advice is start with your data foundation first. Before you scale any agentic AI initiative, make sure that your data is discoverable, trusted, and governed. This is actually exactly where AWS and Precisely work together. Combining AWS cloud and AI infrastructure and services with Precisely data integrity capabilities really help organizations build the data foundation, such as metadata management, clear data lineage, and governance framework, so they can help handle autonomous decision making. This is what actually makes agent work. Without it, you just like automating uncertainty, as you said. Agents are only as good as the data can that they can access and trust. So governance and data quality are very important. So if you get the data foundation right, then the agent will deliver real value for your business. This is my opinion.
Thank you so much. I know that we're going to open up for questions now. So if you have any questions in the audience and you want to add those to the Q&A, we can take those now. We'll give you a second to add any questions that you may have to the Q&A. Okay, so we have a couple questions here. And I'll just pose these to the group, and then if you all have any thoughts on any of these, just let me know. How are you measuring AI ROI at your various organizations? If at all at this point, actually, is probably a good question too.
So at Norton, I would say that the ROI is typically measured in adoption right now, which is basically the first step towards going there. So it is still you first able to measure whether it is well adopted, and once adoption is there, then you start talking about what value did it bring, and then the value brought in has to be then measured whether if it is value brought in terms of time savings because a lot of the tasks got delegated, that in itself doesn't bring in ROI. What is then brings in is redeployment of those resources. So if instead of like you used to do some basic stuff like email management and those things, if 2 hours are saved, did you deploy those 2 hours to grow the business? And that incremental grow the business piece is that's where we are still in a journey to achieve.
Annika, were you going to add something else there?
Yeah, I think I agree with Drew. Right now in our firm, it's more about right now it's like engineering adoption of how they increase their productivity and how many tokens. So we have a dashboard, a TV dashboard about how many tokens are getting consumed. I know there's a joke right now, like, okay, more tokens you consume, you keep your job. But we still have a leaderboard in terms of how many billion tokens you're using in Claude. So that's the kind of motivation for folks. And another area which we see the ROI, like currently one it's like people want to do more multitasking. So one of the things is like, okay, how many projects can you handle at one go? And a lot of engineers are getting smart in terms of doing parallel tasking and different product management designs. Designers are getting into. So it's more like cross skills learning, and also within the skill, how do you get better? That's how we are measuring ROI.
Very good. Tamara, and no requirement to answer the question, but was there any thoughts before I go on to the next question?
Yeah, so I think this measurement framework can include key metrics such as cost savings, revenue uplift, time to value, and also it can help like industry benchmark, and so it can help on this. This is just to add that I already said.
So this actually this attendee had asked this question that kind of goes back to some of the answers that we had around governance. This is specifically how is governance of data for reports versus governance for data for agentic AI different? There was a couple kind of differences in the ways that you all answered that question. So I think this individual is maybe interested in diving into the differences of those two practices a little bit more.
Yeah, I can go.
Go ahead.
So in the traditional, like back when there was no AI, we were our governance for data for reports was mostly around, um, you know, do we have the right, like, do we have the right policies and everything at the catalog level, whether it's at the database schema, what are the best practices there, who looks at the data? So more of like static kind of policies, like, and then for reports, like, are they meeting the, like, is your pipeline running properly? What are the things like metrics? What are the overall, like, average is looking good or not? So there were some test cases here and there about governance of data for reports, and a lot of humans were actually very confident that okay, this report is wrong because I know exactly my business, right? But the governance for data, agentic AI is a little bit, in my opinion, if you are having an agentic system making decisions of in and out, like from the ins and coming up with the outs, sometimes it's a black box. So the question is, how do we ensure the black box gets more transparent? Is by looking into what needs to be there in terms of reasoning trace, and then what are the logic embedded in there? Who is making those changes? Are they following guardrails in real time? So I would say, like, there is the systems have not evolved in terms of governance for agentic AI. Maybe AWS or other companies are already working on it, but I would currently say that we are just focusing on custom recipe based on the use case. What is the governance for a particular use case?
I'll add one thing here too, and you had mentioned a little bit of this, Aniket, but just seeing the emphasis within kind of AI governance frameworks on the traceability, the
Hmm.
auditability, the transparency, the ability to see which models, which use cases, which
Yeah,
deployments, leveraging which data sets, and then being able to surface the overall quality score or trust
yeah,
score of that data is where I'm seeing the biggest difference between that more dynamic governance for agentic ready data or AI ready data versus that of those that are going to be used for quarterly reports or things like that. It's going to be more about that in real time traceability and auditability so that you can stay, compliant against like various regulations that are beginning to emerge or other aspects of your governance program that your organization has put in place. So that's what we are seeing at Precisely is certainly kind of the emphasis on that, and especially in high stakes, more regulated implementations of agentic AI. Okay. We have one more question here that we'll get into, and this one's from Craig. Thanks, Craig. Data, and I'll read this a little bit more. So it's a little bit longer. Data quality. If the initial data quality is low when you have scanned your data into model, as you improve the data quality in your data state, how do you ensure the model doesn't continue to use the poor data quality when providing insights? For example, incorrect credit scores for customers that we're either missing or incorrect. So it's essentially like once let's say you've cataloged something or you have something, you've brought that into your system. How do you ensure that you're using the best version of that? I'm hoping that I'm representing your question correctly, Craig, but that's sort of the spirit of Craig's question there. Any thoughts on that particular question? Essentially, how are we going to continue to use the best um, uh, or the highest quality version of our data? Well, that might drive us back towards that governance conversation, but um, how do we ensure that we're using the best version of our data, or having our AI models use the best version of our data?
and uh, if I may, like, this was a we experience in real life in our company. When we started the AI chatbot for customer service, we ingested all the data, all the conversations of the past, everything, so that the AI model could learn. And I still remember there was one human customer service answered questions that at ThreadUp we accept men's clothing, and that was a wrong fact. And in the pure FAQs, we only have women and kids clothing. But then there was one line in that knowledge base which say that one of the customer service agents said that, yeah, we accept men's clothing for some partnerships. But the AI model understood that we always accept men's clothing. And it started hallucinating. And that's when we realized that the data quality with what Craig is asking, like that was not poor. That was just incorrect information that was fed in, but it was correct in his own context that okay, for some partnership we accept, but then it just generalized the information in a way that ThreadUp accepts men's clothing. So that's when we had to actually wipe out the knowledge base and restart again, and to ensure that the knowledge base which the AI is referring to is always cleaned to proper facts, and like there has to be a curated curation that has to happen on the knowledge base, and that's how we were able to ensure the data quality remain consistent. So that's the practical example I could give.
I can add also, Antonia. So,
Please.
my opinion also, if you fine-tune model on bad data, you need to retrain it.
Yeah.
So it's no other way. For example, if you need to keep versioning of data. So if you already embedded poor quality data into vector storage, for example, you need reindex after
Yeah.
cleanup. So delete all the embedding and not corrected sources. And also for critical fields, like, for example, created scores, add validation checks before the model uses them. So it should be flagged. So it's like, otherwise it's also you will use like silently bad data in your model. And also RAG can help. So, and usually we recommend RAG, so and enterprise, but for where data quality evolve over time, every time. So you improve data on each step. This is my answer.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So those
I'll
are
just
those.
add one.
Oh, please, Drew, please.
Yeah, yeah. I'll just jump in, and one thing around like the data quality is one thing is like when the question was asked is like, are we using the best quality data? I thought that the idea was like, are we keeping multiple copies of the same data such that some is poor quality, other is better quality? Typically in a Mendelian architecture, one can say that yes, the gold quality is the best one relative to bronze. But otherwise, I would say that typically this is dependent on what kind of use case you have and is the data fit for the purpose. So you cannot like if you have decisions that are broad based and not very precise, then you can use get away with a little bit lower quality data as well, because one has to also understand that there are cost implications of getting to the best quality data, and at the same time involved as well. You have to basically delay adoption while you wait for the best data to arrive, and keep on investing in it. So I would say that consider both. What do you want to take decisions? Are they low risk? Can they be reversed? And decide based on that.
Thank you so much to our panelists today. This has been a fantastic conversation, really candid and important points that I think everybody had to make. If there was one takeaway for me for today, it's that agentic AI doesn't just kind of accelerate our work; it accelerates all the consequences of it as well. So when when the AI is acting more autonomously, the costs of that poor data compounds very quickly, but so do the benefits of getting it right if you are able to. So if today's discussion really resonated with you, I'd encourage you to explore the Precisely and Drexel University's 2026 State of Data Integrity and AI Readiness report, and continue on the dialogue within your organization about what it really means to take kind of your AI from its current state to something that actually acts on your behalf. So thank you all for joining us today. I hope you were able to get some value from today's conversation. Thank you all. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.